Okay, so we're going to just review adding membership or security to a website. And to do this, it's relatively simple. It's click, click, click again. We just have to know there's certain files we need, certain things, places we need to click. So to get started, we need this page called login.aspx. You just got to have this because when automatically it's built into the system that when someone tries to access a page that they need permission to see, it's going to look for a page called login.aspx. It's just going to automatically redirect them there. So the first thing we do is build that page to say add a new item. It's a web form, it's nothing special, but its name has to be login.aspx. And it has to be in the top, kind of the root level of your website. Then on this page, you need to put one thing, at least one thing. You can put more stuff, but we need to have this login control. And this is the control again when somebody needs to log in to have access to a page. This is how they log in. So step one, make this page login.aspx and put the login control. The login control is in the login section of the toolbox. So that builds the page, but now what we actually need to do is set up the database and add accounts and that kind of stuff. And actually before we do this, we also, since we can only add or restrict people by folder, you probably want to have a folder that, at least for practice, that you can restrict. And again, in reality, you'd have a folder. So I have this folder called sadmin, and this is something I do. I put an S on the front of it if it's secure, or I'll put SEC on it so that I know it's a folder that I want to secure. So in this case, we're going to say this is the one folder that we want people to have to log in to see this information. So to get started with setting the permissions, there's two ways to get at this. You can either go to the login control and talk to It's Rob, and then go to Administer Website. Or if you don't have that up, that page is not there, and you want to get the same thing, you can just go to the Website menu and then go to the ASP.NET configuration. This is going to take you to the same thing. And what this is actually going to do is start up your web server, and it's going to talk to the mini SQL desktop database engine, because it's going to make some database files for you. It's just going to create these automatically. And we'll go look at those files in a little bit. So what we want to do here, again, is do the security, and you can either switch to the tab here, or you can click on the link here. And the first time through, I say, well, let's just do this. Let's just walk through the security wizard. After the first time, you can just go to the links that you want to go to. So the first page is just a welcome page. You can click on the next down here. Then selecting the access method. From the local area network, this is if you're running Active Directory. So like here on campus, if I log in on campus to my, to the Windows network, we can actually use that same login to access the web pages, which is kind of nice. So we would do this for the CBC web server. If there's pages that are restricted, well, I log into the CBC network, then I can see my pages on there. But on the normal big internet, eBay, those kind of things, they don't have this. So in most cases, you're going to want to say from the internet. This is saying we're not using Active Directory. No matter what, I don't care if you're logged in anyplace else, you're going to still have to log into this particular website. The next thing we can do, we can just skip this screen again. We can define roles, and again, roles are like groups, and the reason to have roles is that when we add or remove permissions, we'll see we kind of have to click to add permission to any particular user. So if I have 10, 15 users that I want to add permission, I'm actually going to put them in a role, and then I can just add permission to the role. So it's going to be one click rather than 15 clicks. It just kind of speeds things up. And again, there's kind of some point where it's obviously easier to use roles. But if you have 1 or 2 users, it's probably easier not to use roles. I'm thinking around 4, 5, 6, then I start saying, oh yeah, why don't we use a role instead of using individual users. So we have it turned on. You can turn it off if you don't want to use it. And there's no harm in having it if you're not going to use it. if you say a role, then you have to actually create a role. And so we have some here that were there before. I made an admin role, an instructor role, and a student role. We'll skip this part. Okay, then you need to have at least one user. And again, the only tricky part on this is when you do the password. There's some rules in the configuration file that say how strict your passwords need to be, and by default it's set to very strict passwords, or very secure passwords, not strict, but the rules are very strict. So it has to be, I think, at least 8 characters. It needs to have non-alpha characters like or non-alpha numeric like a dot or a star or something like that. It needs to be a mix of numbers and letters and all kinds of stuff. So you want to make at least one user. I made a Tony one yesterday. We'll make a Joe user. And then it's going to ask you for an email. Oops, and again I can't type for... Okay, it's going to ask you for an email. You want to put this in here because we'll see later if we need to recover the password, this is where it's going to send the recovered password to. Okay, so after we create a user, we can come here and actually start then allowing or denying permissions to get to different folders. So when you first see it, you only see the folder for your entire website, and you could say on my entire website I want to deny permission to everybody or allow permission to everybody. By default, everybody has permission, so it's kind of this anonymous users has permissions to see everything. And again, we can only do this by folder. You notice I can't see individual files underneath here. So we might come through here and say, let's do the help desk. The first thing you want to do is actually deny anonymous, because by default they can see it. So you click the folder that you want to set the permissions on. You set who this rule is going to apply to, and I'm going to choose anonymous, and then I'm going to choose deny, and I'll add this rule. And then we'll now see on this folder it says down here deny anonymous, and we could delete that rule if we want to. And now what I'm going to do is add permissions to somebody. So again, click the help desk folder. But now I want to add the user, and I made this user Joe, and I want to allow Joe to have permissions to see that folder. So again, I'll add this rule, and we'll see down here that Joe is allowed. So anonymous is denied, Joe's allowed. So you'd go through this, and again, if you had more than one folder, do it on whatever folders you want to secure, who's in, who's out, kind of thing. The main thing is, make sure deny anonymous first, and then allow who you want to allow. And you can do it by role, or you can do it by user. We'll say next. So we're done with the wizard. We could finish. You notice that button's kind of hidden, so sometimes you have to see this. If I say finish, I'm back at this, and I can, rather than running through the wizard, if I want to change this, I can always just hop in here and change any of those individual things. So once I've done this, Visual Web Developer has actually set up a database for me, added everything we need to keep track of users and passwords, and again we'll look at that in more detail. And it actually is this ASP.NET.DB.MDF. This is the database file. It's this little mini database file. It's used by the desktop SQL engine. It's also, if we go through here and look at our different folders that we put these permissions on, we get this web config. And if we look at this web config folder, this is one we did yesterday. It's an XML file, but it has this authorization stuff. So if I want to change the authorization, I can run through the wizard, or I could also change it here. So this deny users equals question mark, this is actually for anonymous. This is denying them. And then allow users equals Tony. This allows, this is where it allows things. So again, if I once this file is out there, I think, didn't I put one in the help desk? I thought I put a rule on there. Let's refresh that and see. Come on, catch up with me here. But once you do that, you can, again, you can edit this file rather than going through the wizard if you want to change that change that stuff. Okay, so let's stop the movie because that's